Derek is going to take over for him and present the memo and see if we can get council's consensus on what to do with that intersection of 4th and Road and Isle Drive for the 2022 project. So I'll turn it over to you, Derek, to introduce yourself to the mayor and the city council.
Sure, yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Derek Arns. I'm the engineer of record here on this Inglewood Drive project, and yeah, filling in for Pete, like Trevor said. I guess you want me to go ahead and share the PowerPoint here.
Might as well go right into your PowerPoint. Yeah.
All right.
They got your memo and stuff in the packet. So,
Trevor, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Mark.
Okay. I'm having trouble getting in on my computer. My computer won't start for some reason.
Okay.
So I'm on my phone.
It's working for now.
Okay. Well, I may have to run to the truck and get the charger.
We can see you and hear you.
Okay, well, that's good.
Okay.
I don't know what's wrong with the computer, but it came on, flashed, and then won't come back on.
Okay, Derek, go ahead.
Okay, and you can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Isle Drive 4th and Road intersection here. As Pete talked with you guys a few weeks ago about this project, this was one of the areas or the intersections that was unknown on kind of what to do from the planning studies. Today, this intersection here is a two-way stop control intersection. 4th and Road is free flowing east to west. North and south, you get a stop sign on the Home Depot driveway and then Isle Drive as well. If you look at the planning studies, which I'll pop up on the next slide, this configuration and alignment of the free-flowing mainline road doesn't necessarily work with the West Reliever roadway design. And actually looking at old Google Earth aerials and stuff like that, it looks like this road always was east-west where it connected actually to the old 371 road, or what if that was 371 20 years ago before they made the connection through City of Baxter. So you can see here the city has been planning for realigning of this intersection with the purchase of that property in the southwest corner, and along with you can see there's an easement there that was swapped with the real estate parcel to the left of the city property. So if I go to the next one here. So I think Pete showed this to you guys, kind of talking about this Inglewood project is, one of the later improvements to complete this West Reliever roadway, because obviously there's the Roundabout at County Road 48 and been improvements on Isle Drive in the past. In the right image, you can see the close-up of what was planned from that planning study. I think that was completed 8 years ago. And you can see that, yeah, they even is kind of indecisive on it should have be a roundabout, should be a T intersection, etc. And that's kind of what we're going to figure out tonight. And so now I'm going to go through those alternatives that were presented in that memo. Just like the rest of the Inglewood project, these are still conceptual designs. We can still tweak turn lane designs, widths, trails, pedestrian accommodations, etc. As we kind of engage the public as well. But essentially here, these are, the basic, I guess, the high level designs. Are we talking about one-way stop T intersection? Are we talking a roundabout or leaving the intersection as is? So this alternative here is your basic T intersection. So you can see that then Isle Drive would be the northwest route, and that would be free flowing. So the stop would be on 4th and Road. This option here does have a proposed crossing of the sidewalks. You can see we'd be implemented on North Trail on the 4th and Road east leg. However, with the plan to not make that an always stop, that would be a crossing of pedestrians at a full speed. I guess at full speed. I mean, we could, if this option was selected, we could go down the route of looking at an RRFB, which is essentially a signal push button that would flash up, or there's a Hawk signal. But I guess as we go through the alternatives here too, we'll talk about what we would ultimately propose. So again, this one here just has all, you'd have turn lanes for each one of the movements at the intersection itself as well. So, and this cost here was from the feasibility study completed by WSN a couple of years ago, and they estimated at $505,000 roughly. And so then I'll go to the next alternative here, which again in the planning level studies was always considered. We took it to a more detailed level with going through the costs, kind of figuring out what would be the design of it. We working with Trevor and Trevor. If we go down this alternative, the mini roundabout would follow the city of Baxter's standards, or what they've been implementing on, I think, Highland Scenic. Those two mini roundabouts were originally installed. So we'd be trying to keep it consistent within the city. Here, the nice improvement is that the footprint and the impervious pavement does go down because you do have less turn lanes. And then the pedestrian crossing here is actually at a yield point. So it is a little safer this way, because the cars would legally have to yield to pedestrians versus the other direction. They would not, unless you implement again kind of a pedestrian crossing treatment system. Then in this one here, we use the same I guess cost estimate approach that was done in the feasibility study from the T intersection, and this one we are estimated at $681,000 roughly. And so going through these three possibilities, the existing conditions, the T, the multi-lane roundabout, we ultimately are recommending and proposing that the city move forward with the mini roundabout. First off, because it does better accommodate the crossings of Isle Drive. With this whole Inglewood crossing, one of the number one things the city wants to improve is the crossings and just the pedestrian and bicycle facilities, especially the crossing at 210, that once you cross 210, you're going to be going down Foley Road and 4th, and that they're going to be passing through this intersection anyway. If they want to get to, say, Costco or Home Depot, they're going to want a nice crossing of Isle Drive. Overall, this would reduce intersection delay, because if you do get a lot of cars on that 4th and East Leg Road, and there's no gaps on Isle Drive as cars are going through the corridor north-south direction, you might find yourself waiting there a while, where the roundabout does a better job of allowing gaps, or you can squeeze in there with traffic just being a yield. You don't have to go to complete stop. And again, it provides traffic calming in the area to keep speeds down. That's always a plus. And then with this area, being a commercial area, if you get, a couple businesses there in that area, that's going to be traffic generators. The roundabout will do a better job adapting to all that compared to the T intersection. So again, our recommendation is that we proceed with the mini roundabout in our 2022 Inglewood Drive project. And then again, we'd further evaluate that during the public involvement process here, and then ultimately get to final design. So I guess with that, we're looking for a direction on what would be the city council's decision.
Derek, what was the cost difference between the two?
About 170,000. So you got 681 and 505. I guess it'd be 176,000.
Maybe I was. Did I hear someone? Ooh, I'm getting a lot.
Everybody's feeding.
Should I?
Try it again.
Okay. Did I hear
you
that one minutes was years ago?
Sorry, did you say the planning study?
No, the cost. Is that a current estimate or is that years ago?
That was back in 2018 was the cost estimate for the T intersection. And actually, I do have it here. Let me see when that pops up here. I believe it was 2018, and I do not think WSN did have inflation acquired for on there. So yeah, you could say that there should be a couple year inflation to compare with our numbers, which would be 2021. Right here. Yeah, so they do not. These are again March 14th, 2018.
Okay, so how much of a difference are we looking?
Some are,
Go ahead, Trevor. I mean, I'd say inflation's 2.5% probably.
if you use the 4% interest or the cost of construction, you're out about 20,000 a year. So you're probably more 560,000.
This computer problem has got to be on our side because he's coming in fine. Well, now, is it working now? You guys hear me?
You're
Yeah.
coming in good.
Oh, maybe it's fixed.
Maybe it's fixed.
Council, any other questions or comments to weigh in here?
I think go back to Connie's deal. I think
on my
the actual cost difference between the two is probably closer to only 125,000 in today's dollars.
Yes, that's a good point.
What is staff thinking?
I'm thinking that we go with the mini roundabout right from the start so that we're not upgrading and having to change it in the future. It's the easiest way to adapt with the traffic flows in that area, depending on what happens, over on Elder Drive and the rest of those commercial spots. And then I also like that it helps the pedestrian crossing and it gives a safe haven, on that curve compared to the T intersection. So the other thing that comes with the roundabout is then the intersection is lit. That's with lights as well, so.
Yes, that's included in the cost.
The T intersection wouldn't have been lit.
Trevor, I'm just curious if maybe this isn't a right assumption, but is the Roundabout may be a little bit more expensive in the beginning because of additional design costs or anything like that, where longer term that becomes a little bit smaller in terms of the rework that happens in 30 years?
The footprint is less of bituminous. It's less impervious surface. So when you go in there to redo it in the future will be cheaper compared to the T intersection. The cost, why it's more money up front, Zach, is because of the concrete medians and the street lights. The lighting roughly is about 6 lights. That's roughly about probably 60,000-70,000 right there just to light the intersection of that 170 or that $125,000 difference.
Okay.
Then it's the concrete, but actually the bituminous surface will be less in the future for doing a mill and overlay or an FDR.
Yep, because of the no turn lanes. Yep.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
So I know this has been studied for a few years now or whatever. Can you tell me, as a new council person, the reasoning for changing the intersection at all?
Just to make it the parallel corridor to Trunk Highway 371. We started it out at County Road 48 and Isle Drive intersection, and we want to go all the way to County Road 77, the Pine Beach Road and Inglewood Drive intersection, and have a continuous route. Paralleling 371 to keep the local traffic on our city streets and keep the local traffic off of Trunk Highway 371 so that the traveling public through the city of Baxter stays on 371 and keep the speeds up.
Thank you.
Well, it's kind of indicative of all of our projects. The costs keep keep going up. You don't want to be, pound wise, penny foolish, however that one goes, And good question by Zach there. What is the long term? Looking at that picture too. And, we did buy that property several years ago with the idea that, like Trevor said, to get the traffic to go north, but also to keep moving, to make it go smooth. And so we always knew at some point we'd want to curve that road to keep that traffic moving. Whether there was going to be a roundabout or not was never, solidified. Didn't have to make that decision, I guess, until now. So any other thoughts about that or? Any consensus?
Yeah, my thought is that we go with small roundabout.
Okay.
Seems to make the most sense, and I'd rather do it in the beginning and not have to come back after a few years when we see there's traffic issue there.
I would support option 3 as well.
I agree.
Okay. And I would too, I guess. So hearing no one else, we'll move forward.
Turn the next one over to Scott Hedlund, I think, to do introductions from SEH.
Yep. Thanks, Trevor, Mayor and Council. Scott Hedlund with SEH. I'm a senior project manager. With me today is Justin Anibis. He's one of our traffic engineers. And just quick history, the city requested that we review and comment Mndot's 210 access study. And as was discussed at the last work session, Mndot did just release that a few weeks ago, and formal comments from the city are due this Friday. So we did prepare a comment memo that you received in your packet. And we have a PowerPoint that we're going to go through quick that Justin will go through and just hit the highlights of that. In the interest of time, I guess we were originally thinking we'd open it up for comments after each slide, but maybe we should just slug through the whole thing, but it's up to you guys, but we'll we'll start out. We have some general comments and then intersection by intersection comments. So Justin, you want to take over?
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. So as Scott said, we just kind of started with some general notes after reading their report. Kind of the biggest thing we looked at was right now they consider 210 west of 371 as a rural area for the purposes of access management. And that means basically you can have a signal every mile and another access like a 3/4 or some sort of reduced access every half mile. The study that determined that was done in 1997, which is quite a long time ago. So we would suggest, at least asking Mndot, if this area would be considered urban or urbanizing. East of Memorywood Drive, it's pretty developed, mostly residential, kind of on the west end, but pretty well developed there between Memorywood and 371. The biggest difference in making that change, it would allow another signal between Inglewood Drive and 371. Obviously not in the short term, most likely because of railroad crossing concerns, but in the long term, if the Elder Drive intersection were to move, it could possibly be signalized if this were an urban or urbanizing area. The next comment we had was on the west end. They're currently proposing going from an existing 4-lane section in the area of Memorywood and Meredith Drive and converting that down to just 2 lanes, so 1 lane in each direction. And that doesn't really seem to support the long-term goals, which were to have 4 lanes travel on 210 between Baxter and Motley. So just kind of asking Mndot if there's a way to keep that as a 4-lane section. And then there's a couple comments we had on the safety analysis, just including crash severity, looking at crash patterns, especially at 371 and Elder Drive, where there's some pretty big safety concerns. And then future crash estimates for build conditions. Usually it's a nice way to look at how many more or less crashes you can expect if you spend a certain amount of money to make improvements. That's usually used in a lot of like cost benefit analysis. Now we'll start going through each intersection. So starting on the west end, heading east, Timberwood Drive, the recommendation of the report was to maintain the existing condition, which is minor street stop control. And at the point at which there's development on north and south of here, then you would consider some sort of traffic control change. In our opinion, this study should look at what that control might be. The Potlatch AUAR called for a signal or an interchange at this intersection. So just kind of acknowledging that in Mndot's report and maybe making a recommendation for one or the other. Meredith Drive, Mndot recommended to maintain the minor street stop control that's there right now, but reduce 210 to 1 lane in each direction. Our comment was really, can this stay a 4-lane section? It looks like there's no safety concern here, and the operations are working pretty well right now and in the future with 2 lanes in each direction. So I guess, is it possible it could stay as a 4-lane section there? Because you're not reducing any pavement with the way this the current plan is, because you're just striping off lanes. Memorywood Drive, the Mndot recommendation is an unsignalized green T intersection and reducing 210 to 2 lanes, so 1 in each direction again. Our comment here is just if there's any way to make this design could accommodate a 4-lane section, just to keep that vision of 4 lanes from Baxter to Motley. Highland Scenic Drive, Mndot's recommendation was to maintain the signal control. Their plan would be to close that 3/4 access at the speedway there and then lengthen that westbound left turn lane. Sounds like it's especially needed when trains are blocking on the south leg of this intersection. There was a typo in the report where they called it extending the eastbound left turn lane. That should be westbound left turn lane. And something we talked with Trevor about was, should County Road 48 be realigned to line up with Memorywood Drive? If you were to do that in the short term or sooner rather than later, you could have a signal at that intersection. So it'd be a 4-lane or a 4-legged signal. And you'd be able to keep that 4-lane section on Trunk Highway 210. And then you could keep that Speedway 3/4 access where it's at right now. That Speedway access that they recommend closing, they would move to essentially where Art Ward Drive is right now. Our comment there would be that could have a negative effect on speeds, volume, and safety along Fairview Road west of here, as vehicles kind of can tend to speed towards that Speedway access because they're not a local trip. They're just trying to get to and from the gas station. So there could be some speed complaints on that road if that access is moved further away from the gas station. Knollwood Drive, I think as we've talked about at other council meetings, the south leg is going to close as part of the Foley Road project. And their recommendation is to construct an RCI at this location. Our comments there are the westbound U-turn that they currently have drawn doesn't have an acceleration lane. So basically you're taking a U-turn into a stream of traffic that's going 55 miles an hour. So that's pretty much the same as taking a left, southbound left at the actual intersection. So if the plan is an RCI, we would recommend including an acceleration lane so those vehicles can speed up to highway speeds. Again, another typo, they labeled Knollwood as a 2-way stop control in their safety analysis table. It's currently a signal. And then one comment we had was if Knollwood was analyzed as a minor street stop control, and that's what was proposed as part of the Foley Road project. So just leave it open for both southbound rights and lefts. Inglewood Drive, Mndot's recommendation is the same as the Foley Road project. So add the south leg and signalize the intersection. The image here is actually from the presentation that Bolton and Mink showed last time for the Foley Road project. So we didn't have any comments or concerns on that end. Elder Drive, Mndot's recommendation was to signalize the eastbound, the northbound right turn, and the westbound left turn movements in the midterm to improve safety, and then eventually shift the intersection west to 4th and Road / Foley Road in the long term to make room for a potential interchange at Highway 371. One of our comments was, should the signalization of the south side of this intersection be moved to a short-term project? In our opinion, that could be a part of that Mndot 2024 project along this roadway, especially since the crash rate is 3.7 times the critical rate. So there's a significant safety concern here. And it seems like that signal would help mitigate some of those right turn or the right angle crashes at that intersection. So if you get that signal in sooner rather than later, I think it'd be great for safety. In terms of moving Elder Drive, I think you would need a much better picture of what that interchange at 371 is going to look like. This study doesn't really give a timetable for when there might be an interchange there. And the interchange design would significantly impact how far or to where Elder Drive would need to move, depending on how big and how high speed that interchange would be. If it's a cloverleaf option that needs more distance because of higher speeds, or if it's more of a diamond situation where maybe you don't need to move it as far. And then, as I've mentioned before, if you reclassified 210 to urban or urbanizing for access spacing, that relocated Elder Drive intersection could be signalized. Highway 371. The Mndot study basically recommends leaving it as is for now, and that eventually grade separation will be needed, and that's an opportunity project. They don't really give a timetable for when that may happen. So one of our comments was, is there a timetable for when that construction or design would happen for that interchange? And the other question is, what triggers the need for that interchange? There's obviously capacity and delay and queuing issues there right now, and there's a crash rate that's nearly five times the critical rate. So a safety concern. There's a safety concern and operational issue. I guess, what is it that's going to tip the scales to say we need to look at or study an interchange? The report is pretty short on everything east of here. All three intersections, Golf Course Drive, Cypress Drive, and Baxter Drive, they say to maintain what's currently there. Most of that area was recently redone with the Cypress Drive study. We have no concerns with the 3/4 axis at Golf Course Drive. For Cypress Drive, there are some ADA issues that were brought to Mndot's attention during the Cypress Drive project. So whenever they do the 2024 mill and overlay, we would suggest fixing those ADA issues. On the east leg, Baxter Drive, same thing. It's an older intersection, so just fixing ADA issues at that intersection, and then consider removing the south and east leg pedestrian crossings. There's no sidewalk or trail on the south side of 210 east of Baxter Drive, so those pedestrian crossings right now essentially go to nowhere. I think our kind of overarching comment was just that we need a better timeline to determine what triggers and at what point are these improvements suggested. And that will really help the city plan future projects and allocate funding, because there'll likely be some cost sharing for a lot of these projects. That's all we have so far for comments. If anyone has any questions or comments on that.
Obviously, that's a ton of information there in a short amount of time. So we got through that pretty quick. So I don't know if we want to step through intersection by intersection again to open it up for questions. The only thing I would say, Justin, if you went to like our first slide, the overview, that first one I think is really key, that changing the designation from a rural to like a urbanizing type classification, because that's what's east of 371 right now, to give you a comparison. So that's proper spacing, and it really opens up opportunities to the west. It seems to fit better. Any comments on any of these general notes?
I'll ask on that urbanizing concept. Is there a standard or definition of what Mndot would be using, or is it just that's what it was in 97, so they're leaving it that way?
As far as we can tell from the report, it's just that's what it was decided in 1997. So that's the way they're still going about it. It doesn't seem to me, at least from the report, that they looked at how the area has changed since 1997.
I think it's just kind of an interesting concept on to your point, Zach, who determines what. And just a homely illustration here, but on 371 North, which isn't necessarily relevant, but the same process. So you're heading up the highway, it's 50 miles an hour. You get to Target or a little bit there, it turns into 60, just in time to stop at Arby's. And so I asked the question, what happened was it was mowing. The commercial people didn't like the fact that the ditches weren't being mowed. So when I brought it up, they said, well, the difference is that one is urban and one is rural. which doesn't make any sense. It's the same city, it's the same commercial district. And so because right in front of, before Target, it's rural, they couldn't mow because its legislature passed a ruling that turkey eggs or some duck eggs, some kind of eggs were being hatched in the rural areas, so they couldn't mow until after August, which is kind of after the season. So I don't totally understand it either, why we've got these two different, within the same city, within the same district, why you've got these two different, plus it's confusing to the motorists driving the speed limits and whatnot. So I don't, I kind of agree that when we're heading, the city has changed. And so when we're heading west, kind of the same concept here, I think would apply. I just, as long as I'm talking, I would go back to a comment about moving from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. I don't understand that either. There were so many accidents, they couldn't wait to get 4 lanes. And because I've lived on the West End so long and my kids learned how to drive during those years, every single one of our vehicles was either rear-ended or T-boned over the period of time there, especially when it was 2 lanes. And so I don't quite understand. We talk about calming and slowing people down. I think they're still going to hit me. I'm not, I'm not sure about that. So I'm not sure exactly what, if that's a good idea or not. Anyway, that's enough for me. Any other thoughts?
I'd like to ask to the mayor and to Zach's point of definition of rural versus urbanization. So all of the recommendations that Mndot has made for the 210 interchange and the intersections. So I'm going to ask the question in a different way. All of the recommendations that they've made, that would make the definition go to urbanized area rather than rural area? Is that correct or not?
I'll let the engineers answer that one, I guess.
So the recommendations they've made are based on the current rural designation. In terms of what they recommend for control, it doesn't really change rural versus urban. It's just there's a different spacing that's required between intersections. Urbanized areas, you're going to need more access because there's more development. So looking at the access spacing that's out there right now, as I kind of noted, the only real difference would be you'd be able to have a signal between Inglewood Drive and 371. I don't think a lot of the other recommendations west of there would really change.
I'll try to answer it a little bit better. I think I know what you're asking, Councilmember Ward. Right now, they're not proposing any changes on the classification. The urbanized section stops at Trunk Highway 371 and back into Brainerd. From 371 out to Baxter West city limits is still rural. If they would propose to change it from rural to urban, then some of these intersections would probably change on their recommendation. But Mndot has not been willing to change any classification system in Baxter since 1997. They have stuck with urban and rural on both 371 and 210. Exactly the way it was set up in 97 is still how it's still set up today. They have not changed those limits one way or the other.
Thank you, Trevor. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
So what would it take to get Mndot to change?
And my other question would be to the engineers is, have they changed any sections in the state of Minnesota and any other cities around the state that have interregional corridors through them? Have they given in to any other cities and changed their classifications? Or have they been rigid throughout the entire state since 1997?
I would have to check on whether they've changed anywhere else. Off the top of my head, I don't know of any.
I can't answer that either.
Why I ask it, guys, is I'm really thinking that they have not changed it anywhere else in the state. They've been this rigid with every city. But I don't know that. Maybe some other districts have given in and went to more urbanized. And I'll just tell you straight out, the reason that they don't want to go to urbanized is because then they got to start putting in curb and gutter as well. They have to mow more, the way their policies are set up. So from a financial standpoint, they love having the rural corridor through cities because then they don't have to do other certain standards as well.
You know, when I read through the report, what I thought I was reading is one of the advantages of getting it reclassified to urban would be the possibility of more crossings. But you still got the railroad. I mean, is that really a benefit or a reality or not?
I don't think so. I don't think we'll get any more crossings of the railroad tracks for sure. But the one thing that this does bring up is if we could get it reclassified as urban from Trunk Highway 371 to Inglewood, then when they move Elder Drive sometime in the future further west, then that intersection could be a signalized intersection. If it does not get changed when they move Elder Drive, more than likely it'll become an RCI. They will not put in a signalized intersection. It will become an RCI. So you'll have to make the U-turn movements in order to go back to the west.
Any other comments on that slide?
My comments will be overall, I'm happy with what I've seen in the report. As far as our suggested comments, I think they hit it on the head there.
So you're pretty much agreeing, Mark, with what their analysis is?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with what the comments or what the suggested comments from the city would be.
All right, should we go to the next one, Justin?
Sure.
Any comments on Timberwood? I don't know, Trevor, if you want to chime in at all on anything.
I think my only concern as the city engineer is that if they don't say what it'll be in the future, I'm worried that this will become an RCI as well, and we'll lose that signalized or interchange section in the future. And if by chance we could get that parallel corridor, down to Mapleton Road and back up to County Road 77, to the north, this could be a major corridor, 50 to 75 years from now. And what worries me is if Mndot doesn't say that they'll do something in the future, then more than likely, they'll go with a different type of intersection, which could be more restrictive to the city. That's why my concerns are about Timberwood.
It's also a multimodal crossing location as well.
Correct. It is our north-south, very far west bike and pedestrian trail route for the future.
Hey, Trevor, it's Jim, or maybe Scott or Justin. Just one thought on that or question based on the fact that it's an industrial park area. I know those RCIs, I don't know if it's a proven, but I know there's been discussion about how semi-traffic is the one thing that struggles a little bit more in an RCI. So maybe arguing against that based on the fact that it is an industrial area, just a thought.
Yeah, and I know, so if you design an RCI that needs to handle a semi, you need to have quite a big U-turn area. So it almost looks like you have a big like bulb in the road so that the trucks can make U-turns. And I've heard on other RCI projects just complaints that semis are never going to do that. They're going to find a different way to get to the road. So it's definitely something to consider there.
All right. Let's go to the next one.
Pretty much what you're saying with this, Justin, is that there really is no benefits one way or the other of changing it from 2-lane to 4-lane. I mean, why spend the money?
Yeah, and really, kind of as I mentioned, you're not getting rid of any pavement the way they currently have it drawn. You're just striping off, large sections of the road that is used right now to be unused.
Hey, Justin, on this one, Jim again from the police department. Is there any reason if it's going to 2-lane, which I don't like that idea either, but if it does, why would they not make this intersection more like Memorywood, where they show kind of an acceleration lane eastbound? Could we make a comment or request with that?
Yeah, my only guess for why they didn't show a green T here would be it operates fine without a green T, so why spend the money? But yeah, I think it's a good comment to have.
It operates fine until that first crash. I mean,
Yep.
So
And I also believe, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the fact that within a quarter of a mile, you're going to have to merge to get to 1 lane because you'll have the acceleration lane at Memorywood. So you're basically getting traffic to merge into one and then, down there to do the same thing at Memorywood. So that distance, I think, is a factor, correct?
It could be. I let's see, how big of a distance is that? It's almost a half mile between those two. So you actually, I think you could go with, so they turn into that acceleration lane, and that acceleration lane could actually just stay all the way till Memorywood. So there'd be a little bit of weaving between people taking a left at Memorywood and people getting on at Meredith, but it's a half mile, so I don't think it'd be a major concern.
to me, it doesn't make any sense to have a half mile of striped pavement where nobody's supposed to be.
Better off to put, if they're gonna go to 2-lane, then put the green T in here and use that other lane as the acceleration lane for Meredith for eastbound.
Yep.
That's a good comment. Otherwise, keep it as 4-lane.
Right. All right, let's go to the next one. So I don't know if we could expand on this one, Justin. It seems like there's an option to keep the 4 lanes and do the green T here.
I don't know for sure if there is or not. I guess our question was, did they ever look at anything that had 2 lanes in each direction here? I think the biggest concern that Mndot would have would be that eastbound acceleration lane. The eastbound acceleration lane coming from Memorywood, you only have looks like about a quarter mile there until you get to Highland Scenic Drive. So you'd have essentially three lanes leaving this intersection, and then that eastbound lane would have to merge before Highland Scenic Drive. I think would be their concern.
But shouldn't this, if the city believes that we should keep the 4-lane, should the comment be, should Mndot explore putting a green T in the existing 4-lane, and what does that do for design?
Yep.
I
So
would agree.
if they were gonna run 2 lanes all the way up to 48, does that mean they're gonna reconfigure the signal lights there into a 2-lane?
No, it stays 4-lane in both directions at 48. The taper comes before and after. The 4-lane starts here at Memorywood eastbound again. And then the 4-lane tapers in for westbound just after the signal light.
Okay.
I guess we're running short on time here. I don't know if there's any other targeted questions or comments that we can flip to.
Council, anything, things that jumped out at you when you were studying this before tonight?
I got one question on Knollwood for the council. Mndot did send a letter today about our 2022 Inglewood Drive project, and they do not want to leave this as an open intersection. They want the city to put it in as a 3/4 or support the RCI and figure out a way to get the RCI built. They do not want to leave that intersection open as Inglewood is today in 2022 when we do Inglewood.
So are they willing to kick some money at it to make it an RCI?
I don't know, but I don't like the 3/4 access because there's no way to get back to the east. But I'm kind of wondering where the council would stand if it was the full-blown RCI. Would you support that as the new controlled intersection?
Me, before I could make a decision, I would want to know the cost.
I'd support it if they pay for it.
Yeah, if they paid for it 100%, would you support that?
I would.
I would.
Well, you're saying, Trevor, that between those two options, it's the best possible then, or?
Yeah, I don't like just having a plain 3/4 access because that makes then everybody's either got to use Inglewood to go back to the east, or they have to go up and do the U-turn at County Road 48 and then go back to the east. That's what I don't like about the 3/4 access.
Yeah.
I just don't think the 3/4 access does the city of Baxter any benefits overall.
Other comments, council?
Trevor, I agree with you on the 3/4 access and the U-turn. I don't like that right from the get-go either. And you know, the whole financial aspect of it is obviously important, but you know, I think you all got, or should have gotten, or you will get soon, you know, some local constituents that are kind of starting to weigh in on the Knollwood project as well. So there's a lot to be considered here with everything that we've been presented.
Yes. Yeah, we got one today from you, John. I'm guessing we're gonna get more, especially when we start having the the meetings with all the landowners out there. I mean, that's our next goal here next month, is to start having meetings and talking about this whole project.
Mr. Mayor? Oh, he's on the phone.
It's on the phone.
I guess that my one comment in regards to the 3/4 keeping it open, you do gain the safety component in a 3/4 versus keeping it open, for what that's worth.
What my concern is, Jim, is once they put in the 3/4, will they ever do the RCI? Or will everybody just think that that's it and it's done, you know, And Mndot will never come back and spend the rest of the money to do the RCI.
Gets back to the overall triggers and timings kind of theme.
Mndot's really good at taking stuff away, but they're never good at giving anything back for the accesses.
I just got to give a heads up to Kelly. That was the mayor. He's sitting out in front of City Hall. He didn't know we were Zooming. He's going to call you for a Zoom. Are you there, Kelly?
Brad must have heard you, didn't he?
Yeah.
I gave him Kelly's phone number, but whatever.
Okay.
Is all the council pretty happy with those comment letters? I mean, we'll tweak them a little bit with tonight's conversation, but overall, Mark had weighed in and said yes.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I am as well, if you didn't see my thumbs up.
Thank you, Connie.
It's a starting point for me.
Yeah, it's just a comment review letter for a draft study, so it's not final yet, but.
So if there is a consensus of the council, staff will work with SEH and we will draft a response letter to Mndot, and we'll have that to them by Friday, taking in all of the points that SEH has presented to you tonight and has your support. So once there is a final draft that we get submitted, we will make sure that council gets a copy for your use and reference going forward.
Okay. I would look for a motion to adjourn the workshop.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
A motion, second, roll call.
Cross,
Yes.
DCO,
Yes.
Tabit,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes, we are adjourned. We'll be right back.